I rescued the wolf pup that my elder sister had tortured half to death. Out of gratitude, he became my shadow, a devoted bodyguard who never left my side. Ethan took my hand and vowed, "Your life is my life, my lady." But later, when the kingdom fell, rebel forces stormed the capital. Ethan abandoned me to protect his precious sister. While they embraced on horseback, I endured the rebels' brutality. When I opened my eyes, I'd returned to the day I first met Ethan. This time, I won't save him. But then Ethan went berserk, his eyes bloodshot as he screamed at me, Why didn't you choose me?" The rebel forces stormed the capital, toppling the dynasty overnight. The young wolf who'd stayed by my side for 3 years suddenly revealed himself as the enemy general. They viciously tore the clothes from my body. I opened my eyes in despair, watching Ethan clad in armor astride his warhorse. In his arms sat my elder sister. As pain surged through me, tears fell unbidden as I demanded answers. "Ethan, I've treated you well. Why would you do this to me? I'm in so much pain. Save me, Ethan." His face remained stony as he drew his sword and severed the fabric where I clutched his coat. Ethan found me repulsive, his voice cut like ice. "If not for your jealous meddling, Vanessa and I wouldn't have been torn apart all these years." Vanessa looked down on illegitimate daughters like me the most. Time and again, she'd whip me until I was covered in wounds, gloating with satisfaction. "You low-born trash. Hand over that Beastman." In that moment, the murderous glint in her eyes made it clear. Vanessa wanted Ethan dead, so I guarded him with my heart in my throat. I even knelt outside father's study all night, begging him to let Ethan join the army. My throat went dry. "Ethan, I only did that to protect you. I thought he would save me. I naively believed we at least shared familial bonds, if not love. Yet he wounded my shoulder with his blade and left with his true-born sister in his arms." The firstborn sister sobbed in his embrace. He comforted her tenderly. "Don't be afraid, Vanessa, Big Brother will take you home." When I was tortured beyond recognition, Vanessa finally showed up, dressed in gold-embroidered silk. She entered with her maid's support, covering her nose. "Sister Laura, I hope you haven't suffered too much. As sisters, I've longed to visit you sooner, but Ethan dotes on me. And with my delicate condition from pregnancy, I could barely leave my bed until today." Mid-sentence, she covered her mouth with a handkerchief. I noticed the gentle swell of her abdomen. "The palace whispers say General Ethan is utterly devoted to his new bride. He traded all his military honors with the emperor for permission to wed the eldest daughter. I told you long ago, sister, you shouldn't have saved those lowly orcs. No matter how much I plead for you now. Ethan is determined to kill you, but I'll admit your judgment was sound. Never thought he'd rise to general. I suppose I owe you thanks for that." Vanessa's voice remained faint and weak. Seizing the moment when no one was around, she clamped both hands around my throat with vicious force. Forced to open my mouth, I felt a cup of poisoned wine being poured down my throat. Agony surged through my entire being, as if countless venomous insects were crawling beneath my skin. In my final moments before darkness took me, I saw Ethan rushing over to cover my half-sister's eyes with his hands. My death was too gruesome, with blood streaming from all orifices. He was terrified of frightening the one who meant everything to him. "Hush now, don't look, we mustn't frighten our child." My body grew colder by the moment, and so did my heart. It finally dawned on me how foolish I'd been. On stormy nights when thunder rolled, I'd beg Ethan to stay with me in fright. He'd just create distance between us and explain coldly, "Miss, there must be propriety between master and servant. Don't put me in this difficult position." I ruffled his hair with a laugh. "How many times must I tell you? Just call me sis." Only now do I understand. The boy who'd called me sis countless times actually despised me to the core. Everything he did was to preserve his purity for Vanessa. So stingy was he that he wouldn't even spare me a hug. A wave of excruciating pain washed over me as I struggled to open my eyes. There stood Vanessa, brandishing her whip with arrogant dominance. Crack! Another lash came crashing down on me. "This is what you get for defending that werewolf. Don't think you're the lady of this house just because father brought you back." Just as I remembered, Vanessa has loathed me since we were children. Her mother was the legitimate wife, while my birth mother was merely a foot-washing maid in the ladies' chamber. One night when the master was drunk, he forced himself upon her, and thus she conceived and gave birth to me. Vanessa is the apple of the Reginald family's eye. The day she was born was marked by celestial omens, and the fortune-teller declared she carried the destiny of a phoenix. She was destined to marry the crown prince's heir. Yet since birth, I'd been abandoned and raised on a remote estate, until the year I turned 15. During a hunt, the crown prince's heir was thrown from his spooked horse and broke his leg, and so, the one who was most likely to inherit the legacy now found all hope lost. Vanessa threw tantrums, threatened suicide, and wailed about not marrying a useless cripple. That's how I ended up being summoned back from the countryside estate, to take Vanessa's place in the arranged marriage. I pinched myself hard, confirming I'd truly returned to my 15-year-old self. None of it had happened yet, overwhelmed with joy. Tears welled up in my eyes. Stop pretending, don't even think about tattling to father. I wiped the sweat from my face and turned to see 13-year-old Ethan. He wore tattered, coarse clothes with his back torn open, not a single intact patch left on his body. His furry ears drooped limply, soaked with blood. This time, I caught the way Ethan looked at Vanessa, disgust, resentment, grievance, and the profound adoration and longing in his eyes. This was something my past self had never noticed. Following his gaze, Vanessa stood bathed in sunlight, her fair skin glowing with a porcelain sheen. Her elaborate Manchu hairstyle framed a fierce expression that made her striking features even more vivid. In their past life, Ethan failed to kneel properly as Vanessa's human footstool, causing Vanessa's shoes to be soiled with mud, for which he was brutally beaten. I saw my own reflection in the frail Ethan. I couldn't bear to watch him being beaten, so I stepped in to save him. This time, the boy turned his head and met my gaze. He straightened his back, and I saw longing in his eyes. Clearly still a boy with childish innocence, just the memory of Ethan's icy, resentful gaze before death sends chills down my spine. I won't be foolish enough to go out of my way to save an ungrateful wretch again. Elder sister, this is your servant, deal with them as you see fit. Vanessa was stunned. As for Ethan, the moment he heard my words, his shoulders slumped, his face turning deathly pale. Without a second glance, I hurried back to freshen up. The maid Lottie deftly styled my hair and applied my makeup with swift efficiency. I changed into a simple, understated outfit, then I handed the blood-stained, soiled clothes to Lottie. Throw them away, miss, this is your favorite dress, it's already torn. Besides, I won't be needing this dress anymore. I lowered my gaze for one last look at the garment. From now on, neither this dress nor Ethan, all that belongs to the past, I shall erase them from my life. Today the Emperor decreed the marriage between the Reginald heiress and the Crown Prince's heir. In my past life, I missed seeing my father because of an argument with Vanessa. In a fit of rage, father blamed my birth mother Clara for everything. The first wife seized the chance to oppress her. Cutting off her medicine, my mother was deliberately killed in cold blood, too. A single wrong decision cost me the dearest person in my life. Those years drowned in tears. Ethan would always sneak over the wall to buy me sugar figurines. He'd take me flying up to the rooftop to gaze at the stars. Back then he said, "Big sis, Ethan wants to be your only family." I got dressed and headed toward the front hall. Just as I entered the courtyard, I spotted the man in a wheelchair by the pond. His attire was simple yet refined, exuding quiet elegance at first glance. I could tell, he is the imperial grandson, Theodore. But suddenly his wheelchair went out of control and plunged toward the water. At the critical moment, I managed to grab him. As I sighed in relief, I lost my footing and fell right before him. Her face landed squarely on his lap. "Get off." The man's voice turned icy. Rumor had it Theodore had grown vicious since losing the use of his legs. I cautiously looked up and took in his appearance. His chiseled features were framed by sharp sword-like brows and slightly upturned peach blossom eyes. Though his lips curved in a smile, not a trace of warmth reached his eyes. Is he trying to get himself killed? Theodore must survive. He's my only shot at turning the tables. I stood up with hands on hips, taunting him with a look of disdain. Hey, wallowing in self-pity isn't what a real man does. Theodore sat rigidly in his wheelchair, tension written across his face. "So you're my future husband, you're quite the looker." I watched helplessly as a blush crept up to the tips of Theodore's ears. "Would you marry me? I'm the second daughter of Duke's household. My name is Crabapple." Before I could finish speaking, icy hands closed around mine. Ethan had appeared before me without warning. His bare feet were torn and bloody. Bloody footprints marked his entire path. His lips were pale, his body swaying. Yet his eyes burned fiercely as they held mine. "Miss Second Young Lady, take me back with you. I'll do anything you ask." There was an inexplicable certainty in his tone. Ethan knew perfectly well I'd choose him. Being new to the household and soft-hearted made me easy prey. That's how I became his survival tool in our past life. I hadn't even voiced my refusal. Theodore spoke with the commanding presence of a superior. She is my betrothed. Who are you to address me, servant? Ethan was caught off guard. He stammered for a long moment, but no words came out. He's just a Beastman, my elder sister picked up. Theodore, feeling jealous, Theodore's furrowed brows relaxed, brightening with delight. He huffed twice before asking, what was that word you just said? Crabapple, like the crabapple flower. No idea. His shameless act left me speechless. Theodore's palm lay open before me. I carefully traced out the characters. What are you standing there for? Weren't we supposed to discuss the wedding in the front hall? I nudged Theodore forward. As I brushed past Ethan, his fingers lightly grazed the hem of my sleeve. He wanted to grab me, but didn't dare. In the end, all I could do was tremble at the corners of my lips, grasping at empty air. Eventually, I still threw out those words. Take the medicine if you want to live. Theodore and I remained silent the entire way. He spoke abruptly, his tone laced with unprecedented coldness and sarcasm. You'd save anyone, wouldn't you? I deliberately pretended to ponder for a long while, nearly laughing at his visibly jealous expression. Of course it's different. You're my husband. Theodore averted his gaze uncomfortably, so easily flustered. After seeing Theodore off, Father was pleased with my performance, because I'd helped him resolve a major problem, to preserve both our beloved daughter and the Reginald family's reputation, so no one could gossip about it. I made but one request, Father. Please summon the physician to treat my stepmother. Overjoyed, he eagerly agreed. This time, I finally managed to save my family. As I walked back to my courtyard, in the distance, I saw Ethan collapsed at my doorstep. Despite his fever, his grip remained strong, clinging to my hand without letting go. Crabapple, Ethan used to call me that fondly in his past life, but now it only fills me with disgust. Lost in some unknown dream, tears unexpectedly rolled down his sleeping face. What's he crying about? What's there to cry about? This pain is nothing compared to what I endured in my past life. I had him sent back to my elder sister's place. Doesn't Ethan hate me for breaking them up? This time, I'll do him a favor. Let's see how things go without me in the way. Watch how their epic love story unfolds. But the next day, I overheard the servants whispering. They say the young mistress nearly beat that wolfkin to death. I left him clinging to life by a thread. So he suddenly went berserk and pushed the young lady into the water, leaving a nasty gash on the mistress's forehead. I knew it. That's just like Ethan. All he wanted was to use me as his shield. But if no one came to his rescue, he'd turn into a rabid dog, tearing into anyone who crossed him. Ethan survived against all odds. After vanishing for over half a month, he reappeared before me. He'd just stand at a distance, watching me come and go every time. It reminded me of our past life together. When Ethan served as my personal guard, he always kept his distance, yet would instantly appear whenever I was in danger. In our past life, he grew increasingly robust under my care, but now, without the food I used to share with him, Ethan now spends all day holed up in the stable, reduced to skin and bones after a serious illness. I spent a quiet month in the mansion. Vanessa came looking for me. She hired a matron to teach me proper etiquette, how to curtsy, serve tea, and wait upon others. Living in the countryside has made you uncouth. Remember, you'll be marrying as a representative of the Reginald family. Don't embarrass us. She delivered a whole speech that seemed genuinely well-intentioned for my sake. Yet she constantly nitpicks at my faults. When I practiced serving tea to her, she flung scalding water straight at me. As for Ethan, word has it Vanessa took a liking to his bloody determination and reckless courage after waking up, so he became her shadow guard. She had the old woman prick my hand with a needle. Ethan assisted by handing over the needle. Young mistress should rest if you're tired. Let me handle the discipline. Vanessa gave him a knowing look. This is my sister. And I'm doing this for your own good. Of course I need to keep an eye on you myself. One wrong move in the imperial palace could cost you your head. This little pain now is just to teach you a lesson. She sat primly on the chair, eating the pastries I'd queued all morning to buy for her. I curtsied obediently. Thank you, elder sister. Such petty torments were nothing I couldn't endure. Having lived 2 lifetimes, I knew Vanessa all too well. She relished nothing more than my submissive surrender, my deference to her superiority. Go back outside and keep kneeling. My hands throbbed with pain as I watched them whispering intimately. Vanessa Sheng was deliberately making things difficult for me, so I remained kneeling at the doorway for 4 full hours. night had fallen completely, and a light drizzle began to drift through the sky. The rain carried a bone-chilling cold. Just as I was about to faint, a pair of strong hands steadied me. It was the familiar scent of sandalwood. Looking up, I saw Ethan holding an umbrella over my head. He'd grown a bit taller during this time. "The young mistress is asleep, you should go now." He pulled me up firmly and shoved the umbrella into my hand. I want nothing to do with him, let alone owe him any favors. The heavy curtain of rain mirrored my past life. 3. The capital fell on a rainy day too. Ethan kept me company playing chess indoors, but left immediately after receiving the carrier pigeon's message. That day, I pleaded with him anxiously, "Ethan, I'm scared to be alone. Please don't go, okay?" He hesitated for a long moment before finally refusing me. His warm hand ruffled my hair as he smiled tenderly. "Be good, I'll bring you those famous meat buns from the east side when I return." So I waited and waited that day. When the rebels broke down the door, I desperately fled into the streets. Just as I saw Ethan about to call for help, he coldly abandoned me. His heart and eyes held only his legitimate sister. In our past life, he was always playing the devoted lover. Same goes for this lifetime. I told him coldly, "Ethan, even if I die here, it's none of your business." "Oh, seems like little sister hasn't kneeled long enough to get tired. What's with the standing up?" She yawned. "This weather really makes one drowsy. Mabel, keep an eye on her. She stays kneeling until the full hour is served. That's the rule in this household." Yet Ethan stubbornly remained rooted to the spot this time, refusing to leave. "Ethan, I'm freezing. Come warm me up." Vanessa's cheeks flushed pink as she spoke in a playful, coquettish tone. It suddenly dawned on me how close Vanessa had grown to Ethan without anyone noticing. Yet she's the one who values hierarchy above all else. A bastard daughter like me. A wolf beast man like Ethan. We're the lowest of the low. Yet now, Ethan defied his orders, surprisingly unangered. She instead fawned over him with coy submission. "Ethan, you are my shadow guard. Do you remember your vow? You promised to protect me always." Mid-conversation, she darted from under the eaves into the pouring rain. Ethan's expression changed instantly as he pulled her into a protective embrace. "You're not in good health, miss. Don't catch a chill." Vanessa wrapped both arms around Ethan's neck. "How many times do I have to tell you? Call me Vanessa." "Got it." Her warm breath tickled his earlobe, turning the boy's ears crimson. As their eyes met, Vanessa flashed a triumphant smile. That particular smile, I'd only seen it when she wore the exquisite hairpin bestowed by Her Majesty the Queen. Now she's acting like she's snatched some enviable treasure to flaunt. Along with that came a predatory warning. There's only one possible explanation. It dawned on me, Vanessa Sheng had been reborn too. The day of my wedding to the Crown Prince's grandson arrived as scheduled. Before boarding the bridal sedan, Vanessa Sheng pretended to weep with reluctance as she embraced me, yet she whispered words only the two of us could hear. "Clara remains at the manor. Should you fail to obey and perform your duties, I cannot guarantee her safety." My fists clenched as my entire body trembled uncontrollably. I never wanted to lay a hand on Vanessa in this lifetime, yet she forced my hand. I could tell the reborn Vanessa Sheng was growing increasingly impatient. She pleaded desperately with her father to enlist Ethan in the military. She was desperate to see him succeed, just as he had been her protector in their past life. On top of that, Vanessa tried to force me to poison the Crown Prince's meals. The drugs she forced on me could accumulate and cause fatal heart palpitations, with Wei losing its pillar of strength. The rebels found the perfect opening to invade. I nodded in feigned obedience. Vanessa smiled with satisfaction at my spineless, indecisive demeanor. That night, Theodore lifted my bridal veil. "It's been over 2 months since we last met." This time, the man's expression was icy cold. He couldn't even be bothered to pretend. "The Reginald family sent you to get close to me. Did you really think I'd be that stupid?" He clamped his hand around my throat, and I felt the air in my windpipe gradually thinning until it became painful. But I wasn't afraid. I just stared at him calmly. I bet Theodore wouldn't hurt me, because in my past life, when rebel soldiers assaulted me, he was the first to find me, giving me the chance to escape and search for Ethan. He tumbled awkwardly from his wheelchair and shielded me with his body, taking every stab meant for me. Theodore's blood pooled across the ground, mingling with rainwater until all I could see was crimson. I begged him through sobs to come with me. He simply reached out and gently wiped away my tears. "Don't cry, run, or my sacrifice would be in vain. Live well for me, Crabapple." With his dying breath, He shoved me forward with all his strength. How could someone so righteous and kind ever harm the innocent? Watching my eyes redden with tears, Theodore cursed under his breath and shook me off. A man like him was destined to be a great ruler. The thought filled me with profound regret and sorrow. Given a second chance, I resolved to join forces with Theodore. With a smile, I rested my hand on his shoulder. You still can't bring yourself to kill me. Theodore rose in anger, pinning me down with sudden force. My fingers tangled in his hair. Someone told me to kill you, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Theodore was taken aback by my bluntness, his dark eyes unfathomable. Plenty in this palace wish me dead, yet none have succeeded thus far, he remarked with a sardonic smile. Theodore's large hand tightened further around my neck. You won't harm me, because I can heal your legs. Theodore, are you truly content to live out your days in this wretched state? Framed and forgotten, the dynasty teeters on collapse. The people of Great Way need you, your highness. I knelt before him, and in that locked gaze, I caught a flicker of emotion in Theodore's eyes. His scrutinizing gaze lingered on me before breaking into a sudden smile. How intriguing! Why would you assist me, your lonely prince? That smile overlapped perfectly with Theodore's face from our past life, last Lantern Festival. This humble maiden caught but a fleeting glimpse of your highness, yet that single glance captured my heart forever. The flickering candlelight danced as Theodore reached to untie my wedding gown. His gaze lingered with playful intent, while beneath the covers, his hand began its slow descent toward my undergarments. A sudden chill against my skin sent shivers coursing through my body. I buried my face against Theodore's chest. Without warning, sharp pain bloomed across my shoulder as Theodore sank his teeth into my flesh, leaving behind a perfect row of indentations. Promise me this, and you won't be leaving tonight. In the days that followed, Theodore and I lived quietly in the courtyard, biding our time. Theodore still spent his days tending to birds and fish. At nightfall, we pretended to sleep fully clothed. A dim light flickered in the study. The amber glow illuminated his profile, his jaw clenched tight. He was penning military documents with focused strokes. I quietly ground ink for him by his side. Sometimes he'd be so exhausted that he'd fall asleep right at his desk. I'd quietly drape a light blanket over his shoulders. Couldn't help smoothing out the furrows between his brows. Half a year passed like this, and summer arrived before we knew it. Theodore and I were splashing around by the pool. Hey, that's enough, you're gonna make that fish explode. Theodore raised an eyebrow, pointing at the fish in the crystal clear water. Who does it remind you of? Just like someone who looks like their face might burst when they eat. Fuming, I stomped my feet and splashed a handful of water at him. The water drenched his clothes completely. Theodore remained unruffled. Cain, fetch me a clean change of clothes. After the eunuch behind him withdrew, Theodore flung the lotus flower to the ground in anger. How audacious they are, reaching even into my own quarters. The playful smirk faded from Theodore's face, replaced by solemn gravity. In the distance, the fading glow of sunset bathed the palace pathway. Theodore handed me the peach blossom pastries he bought outside the palace today. He asked, Crabapple, the winds of change are coming, are you afraid? I nestled into his arms. With your highness here, what have I to fear? At March's end, the northern barbarians invaded. Meanwhile, news arrived that His Majesty's illness had reached a critical stage. Panic instantly spread throughout the palace and beyond. One despairing concubine took her own life within the palace walls. Never in my life did I expect this day would come so soon. I was showing Theodore the embroidered sachet I'd made for him when he burst through my door. He stood drenched in blood, crimson droplets cascading onto the floor. Your Highness, I gasped in shock. He covered my mouth with his hand. Your father has rebelled. General Arnold is still on his way back to the capital. Father, I've finally realized it wasn't just Vanessa who conspired with foreign enemies. It was Reginald backing her that gave her the audacity to act so recklessly. The Emperor has been assassinated, and they're framing me for it. The palace guards are hunting me down right now. My eyes stung with unshed tears as I gazed at his inflamed wounds. If you're afraid, then leave. He's your father. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't devour its own cub. When the time comes, just deny any connection to me. Furious, I struck his chest as hot tears streamed down uncontrollably. Theodore, is this how little you think of me? I'm not leaving. I'll get you out of the palace, all right. He gave me one last lingering look before passing out. If I survive this, I'll make sure you want for nothing. Just before the palace gates were locked for the night, I sold my jewelry and slipped the eunuch some silver. his face lit up with a grin. In that case, I'll gladly do this favor for you, my lady. I hid Theodore in the palace's night soil cart heading out. He's such a neat freak. If he found out, he'd be livid, but now, it seems he's passed out from the pain. Dressed in ordinary maid's attire, I followed the carriage down the palace road. The carriage was about to pass through the palace gates. As the ornate palanquin passed by, the wind lifted its curtain, revealing my elder sister's face. Time had only enhanced her radiance. Her porcelain skin and graceful bearing spoke of privileged comfort. Wait, stop right there, dear sister. It's been so long. Clara at the manor has been missing you terribly. She leaned out with the support of her palace maid. Oh dear, I left in such a hurry today that I forgot to bring a kneeling cushion. You'll have to do. Back in the mansion, you were quite accustomed to being served. Swallowing my humiliation, I knelt down and pressed myself against the ground, feeling the dust cling to my face. Remembering Theodore still lying inside covered in blood and awaiting treatment, I couldn't afford to offend Vanessa. Vanessa's platform shoes ground mercilessly into my spine, pressing down with deliberate cruelty. Thank you, dear, I'm with child now and shouldn't be moving around too much. As I looked up, I noticed Vanessa had filled out considerably, her rounded belly visibly protruding even through the loose-fitting dress, a naturally gifted werewolf with lightning reflexes. Ethan rose swiftly through the ranks and became a general at a remarkably young age thanks to his patron's mentorship. They'd only been married 6 months, and she was already expecting. Ethan, Vanessa called out suddenly. Following her voice, a tall man in military uniform came into view, leading a squad of soldiers. 2 years had changed Ethan, no longer the reckless boy. He'd grown taller, darker, with an air of hardened severity, yet the moment his eyes found Vanessa, his gaze softened instantly, like ice thawing after a long winter. Fearing Theodore might be discovered, I quietly withdrew. Halt! Where might the crown princess be heading at this late hour, with assassins reported in the palace? All comings and goings require strict inspection. Dear sister, don't blame me for putting you in this difficult position. Vanessa stood gracefully before me, her eyes flashing with calculation and anticipation. My lady, I do have urgent matters to attend to. Vanessa always enjoyed seeing people humble themselves, so I dropped to my knees and begged her outright. My chief maid Hilda has passed. You know she was like family to me. Now I must prepare her for burial. Ethan suddenly spoke up from the side, his tone impartial and dispassionate. Your Highness, please comply with protocol. You will be searched. 2 attendants stepped forward to conduct the search. As their hands neared my sleeves, I broke into a cold sweat. This was the letter Theodore had slipped me before losing consciousness. He'd repeatedly stressed it must reach the hands of the Grand General. At the critical moment, I instinctively raised my hand, revealing the scar on my wrist. Ethan froze when he caught sight of the scar on my wrist. He abruptly barked at the soldiers to halt, for, in our past life, Ethan had barely made it back from the military camp. I was so enamored with our time together that I pestered him to take me to the countryside. Unexpectedly, we encountered assassins, and I took a knife for him. The wound left a permanent scar. Ever since, Ethan would gently trace the scar on my hand with tender regret. He said, Sister, I promised to find you the finest medicine in all the land. Yet in the end, it was he who left me battered and broken, dying in agony. How bitterly ironic. The vehicle was finally allowed to pass. I pretended not to notice Ethan's gaze, bowed slightly, and stepped into the car. My gamble paid off. Vanessa had retained memories from her past life. Even if Ethan couldn't fully remember me, fragments of memory remained. That's why he couldn't bring himself to stop me and let me go. After traveling far from the palace, I carried Theodore out of the carriage. His pain was so severe that his lips turned pale. If we continued at this pace, Theodore wouldn't survive until we reached our destination, so I dragged him to a nearby farmhouse. The white-haired old woman brought out all the eggs from her household. Were you injured by those rebels outside? With the world in chaos these days, we simply can't survive anymore. Gazing at the vast withered crops outside the window, I was reminded of that turbulent era in my past life. The people were displaced, women forced into military brothels, living in unbearable agony yet denied even the release of death. I tightened my grip on Theodore's hand. In this lifetime, Theodore must survive. With his brilliance, capability, and that compassionate heart of his, he'll surely become a great emperor. Theodore regained consciousness 5 days later. Feeling the touch on my face, I woke up in tears and clung to him. You've had so many fevers lately. I was afraid you might die. His gaze was tender as he gently patted my back. I'm not dead yet, but I might be soon if you keep crushing me. I scrambled off him in embarrassment. The day Ethan came looking for me with his men, I was brewing medicine in the courtyard. The village erupted in chaos. Some wailed while others fled with bundles on their backs. The medicine jar I was holding slipped from my hands, shattering on the ground. I rummaged through the woodshed for the hatchet, then helped Theodore out and got him on his horse. Theodore was being as stubborn as a child. He kept repeating, "Crabapple, I won't leave. Your Highness, you must go." "I can't leave." "But you must." A desolate silence fell as the Imperial Guard surrounded the house. "Crabapple, step aside. I won't harm you." I turned to see Ethan clad in black, his sword dripping blood like the king of hell himself. That gaze carried the chilling familiarity of terror. I knew it. Ethan from my past life has returned. I grabbed a butcher's knife and shielded Theodore, shouting, "How dare you? Harming the imperial heir is treason, punishable by death." Ethan smirked at me and barked orders. "Soldiers, Theodore has committed treason. 100 taels of gold to whoever brings me his corpse." As he finished speaking, blades came flying through the air. I swiftly turned and shielded Theodore in my arms. A sharp pain shot through me as something scalding dripped onto my face. "Crabapple, are you out of your mind? Don't you know everyone fends for themselves when disaster strikes?" Then Ethan came stumbling toward me and pulled me into an embrace. "Crabapple, I never meant to hurt you. I thought you'd dodge. Don't worry, I'll make sure you recover." His voice trembled. Without glancing at Ethan, I mustered my strength to raise a hand and wipe Theodore's tears. "Your Highness, you mustn't weep. The people need their savior. Save your tears for greater battles, and don't neglect rest amidst your duties. If your Highness doesn't leave, I'll bite off my tongue right now." With grief-stricken expression, Theodore mounted his horse despite his injuries. I simply told Ethan, "Let him go, or I'll end my life this instant." Ethan just clung to me, trembling and sobbing uncontrollably. "Fine, I'll do whatever you ask." In the dream, I was locked in a death cell, subjected to endless humiliation. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. "Please, just kill me, Ethan, it hurts so much." "Big sister." When I struggled awake, Ethan was sitting beside me. I shrank back in fear. "No, stay away." Ethan held the medicine carefully, coaxing gently. "Don't be afraid, Crabapple. You need to take this medicine for your injuries." Memories from my past life overlapped with this one. I knelt on the ground, desperately kowtowing to beg him, "Please, this medicine hurts too much. Just end it for me, will you, for old time's sake. Remember how I saved you." Ethan's face twisted in pain as he reached out to hold me, yet I lay rigid on the ground, paralyzed. I recoiled from his touch, a visceral fear churning my stomach. "I've returned what you wanted, Ethan. We're even now." Tears began falling uncontrollably as I spoke. I threw Ethan out. I don't understand why he's putting on this lovesick act, nor do I care about his motives. He had the finest meals prepared for me, granting every request except letting me step outside. I'd often jolt awake at night to find those dark eyes watching me in the darkness. Ethan would sneak in to see me daily, carefully keeping to the shadows. Gone was the domineering arrogance of before. He coaxed me to stroke his wolf ears with an ingratiating look, even exposing the most vulnerable part of his neck. I ignored him. But so what? I'll never have anything to do with him in this lifetime. The mansion remained adorned with red lanterns and decorations, with servants bustling about. Ethan came to me dead drunk. He forced me to face him, cupping my cheeks like handling a long-lost treasure. "Marry me, Crabapple. Do this and I'll spare Theodore. You want him alive, don't you? Then be a good girl." I pulled a dagger from under the blanket and slashed his arm. "Ethan, you and Vanessa are a match made in heaven. As for you, I wish I could carve you up piece by piece, just like what you did to me." He looked at me with wounded eyes. "Crabapple, you do love me. You must. Is it because you still hate me for how I hurt you back then?" "I'm sorry. I only realized my love for you after you were gone. As for Vanessa, that woman deceived me. I never meant to hurt you." I just sat there motionless in the chair, completely unmoved by his explanations. He suddenly seemed to remember something, chuckling to himself with delight. "It's not too late for us. I don't care about your past with him, Crabapple. From this day forward, you shall be my wife." Ethan took it upon himself to arrange our wedding date. As for me, I neither cried nor protested. I was waiting for my beloved to rescue me. I knew Theodore would come for me as long as he drew breath, so I waited and waited, only to have Vanessa show up. Ethan forced her to come, saying he'd make Vanessa and me kneel in apology. When the servant brought her in, she was wearing tattered white robes, smiling at nothing. A flicker of life returned to her eyes when she saw me, then she swept the teacup onto the floor. Aren't you thrilled? Aren't you just delighted that Ethan ultimately chose you? Why, just why, in this lifetime? I was the one who stood by him and helped him rise to power. Me. Vanessa suddenly flashed a sinister smile and drew her hairpin toward me. Just as I thought she was about to harm me, she turned the sharp end of the hairpin toward her own neck. In the next instant, blood gushed out in torrents. Lying on the ground, she smirked triumphantly. I'll never let myself fall into your hands. You won't get to torture me, and you're such a fool. Your very existence is Theodore's greatest weakness. With those final words, Vanessa closed her eyes for good. I didn't notice when Ethan came to carry me back, nor did I witness his furious order to have Vanessa torn limb from limb. It suddenly dawned on me, Theodore would remain under threat as long as I drew breath. So that's how it was. From that day on, I stopped eating and drinking, lost count of the days. Word is General Arnold has returned to court with the imperial heir. That day, I sat beneath the crabapple tree for a long time. These were specially transplanted here by his orders. He looked at me pleadingly then. Crabapple, these are the blossoms you asked me to see with you, last lifetime. I broke that promise. When Ethan came to see me, I smiled at him for the first time. I'm craving some pastries. Would you mind picking some up? He nodded eagerly like an excited child, saying, sure. The moment Ethan left, I pulled out the dagger hidden beneath my pillow. It was a gift from Theodore for self-defense. I slashed my neck with all my strength. The pain was excruciating, yet this time I smiled. So different from the agony of my past life. Before losing consciousness completely, I heard Ethan's heart-wrenching sobs. You still refuse to forgive me. Ethan's perspective. Ethan had always believed himself to be nothing more than a lowly beast man, destined to endure abuse and scorn. He was sullen. He had once tried mimicking other beast men, forcing smiles to amuse his master, no matter how hard he tried. Those fangs of his would always send people running in fear. The guards took out their frustration on him with brutal beatings when they couldn't extort money from him. They denied him food and water, while frightened passers-by spat at the chained figure in disgust. Then at age 10, a little girl in clean clothes with her hair in a bun walked up to him. She pressed steamed buns into his hands, her face veiled except for those crescent moon eyes smiling at him. 5, she asked cheerfully. Would you come home with me? As if bewitched, Ethan found himself nodding, but after entering the mansion, he never saw that girl again, until 2 months later when he spotted Vanessa in the courtyard. With just one glance, he recognized those eyes as hers. Believing he'd won the love of his life, he repeatedly helped Vanessa torment his sister from the village, even after she saved her, even when she cared for him with guileless devotion. Yet Ethan despised her, those limpid eyes that stirred his heart, those Vanessa-like eyes that made him feel utterly exposed. When Crabapple pleaded for his help, his mind was in turmoil, yet he chose to stand by and do nothing. He believed that with Crabapple gone, he could devote himself wholeheartedly to loving Vanessa, but every night after Crabapple's death, he was tormented by nightmares. Once, he dreamed of the girl's scalding tears, those reddened, glistening eyes pierced straight into his soul, enough to scorch his heart. So for a long time, he locked himself in the study, painting canvas after canvas of her eyes. His indifference and coldness toward Vanessa grew with each passing day, until one visit to her courtyard, Ethan overheard Vanessa cursing. Has he discovered something? Did he realize it was that woman who saved him back then? Her maid comforted her. Impossible. The second young mistress was beaten half to death by the master for rescuing that beast man. She developed a high fever and was rushed to the country estate that very night. Besides, when they met, her face was covered in rashes, only her eyes were visible. Another maid chimed in, indeed, young mistress, your eyes outshine even Crabapple's. That was when Ethan realized how foolish he'd been. He himself destroyed the girl he'd loved and searched for all those years. After desperate prayers before Buddha, he was granted another life, but this time, he arrived too late. Upon his return, he realized he'd already hurt Crabapple again. This time she chose not to save him, but to love another. Ethan felt consumed by raging jealousy. After all his desperate pleas and efforts to please her, why wouldn't she forgive him? Even that single smile that had filled his heart with joy turned out to be poisonous deceit. That day on his way to buy pastries, He was so elated he began envisioning their future together. When he pushed the door open, he found his beloved lying in a pool of blood, those eyes he adored so much. He gazed at them for what felt like an eternity. There was no fear in those eyes. She had departed this world with peace in her heart. The note clutched in her palm read, "If you truly feel indebted to me, then spare him." Those were the only words she left him. Her first plea to him, it was all for the one she loved. Pear blossoms carpeted the ground as Ethan collapsed, clutching her lifeless body in uncontrollable sobs. Vanessa side story. When Vanessa first saw that lowborn return with a scrawny Beastman, she felt nothing but disgust. Yet later, she watched as that very creature was doted on like a treasured possession day after day. Suddenly, Vanessa wanted to snatch that wolfkin away. Ever since childhood, Vanessa's greatest pleasure had been stealing Crabapple's belongings. How dare that illegitimate wretch claim equal standing as a daughter of the Reginald family, that low-born foot-washing maid who birthed her seduced father away, leaving mother weeping day and night. Mother warned her, "You must never let that creature outshine you. You shall be the finest daughter the Reginald family has ever known," after nearly drowning. When she awakened with memories of her past life, she redoubled her efforts to curry favor with Ethan. In their past life, despite how he treated her, his love for her never wavered, so as long as she kept that secret hidden, Ethan would love her forever. Story 2. When the extreme cold descended, it snowed for 3 straight days, the snow nearly burying half our bodies. The food supply in the restaurant was almost exhausted. I handed out the last 10 boxes of food to the people sheltering in the restaurant. Just as I was about to eat the last remaining box, it was suddenly snatched from my hand. My apprentice, whom I treated like my own son, righteously accused me. "There are still people here who haven't had enough to eat. What gives you the right to the last box?" These refugees were all neighbors who had benefited from my kindness before, including a homeless man who had freeloaded off my family for 3 years. But they would not listen to my explanations and drove me out of my own restaurant. I thought I would die in the snow. Unexpectedly, a steaming hot box of food suddenly appeared in my hands. The snow had fallen for 3 full days, piling up to knee-height outside. The kitchen stove was so frozen it wouldn't light, but fortunately, I had stored some coal for emergencies, which kept the refugees in my shop from freezing to death during the snowstorm. Aside from some rock-hard frozen meat in the fridge, there were only 10 boxes of food left, ordered online 3 days ago. Counting the people, there were exactly 10 in the shop, 1 box each, eaten sparingly, might last until help arrived. After heating the boxes on the stove, I distributed them to everyone in the shop. Just as I was about to eat the last box, it was suddenly snatched from my grasp. I saw my apprentice Ezra holding my box, indignantly scolding me. "How can you eat the last box when others haven't had enough?" Dumbfounded, I instinctively replied, "Because I'm hungry." "Just because you're hungry, you think you deserve to eat? Isn't everyone here hungry? Don't you have any conscience?" Seeing the apprentice I treated like my own son accusing me so unreservedly, I wondered if I was hearing things. "Ezra, what are you talking about? If I had no conscience, I would have driven you all out long ago. Not kept you here eating and drinking for free for 3 days." The 3-day blizzard was terrifying. Nearby shop windows were shattered, and if a person walked outside, they risked being blown away or frozen to death before that. These were people who hadn't left my shop before the snow, and worrying about their safety, I let them stay and provided food and drink for free, thinking they were all neighbors and every little bit of help counted. But Ezra didn't listen to my explanations and instead had an epiphany. "So you've wanted to drive us out all along, haven't you? I see, your heart is truly wicked." Then he opened the fridge, pulled out a big chunk of frozen meat, and told the sheltering crowd, "Look, she has so much meat but didn't give it to us. Just some broth to fool us, probably waiting for us to starve to death so she can eat alone." The people, already miserable from not having enough food or warmth these past few days, glared at me angrily. "Wow, and here I thought you were really kind-hearted. Turns out your heart is so dark." "Boss, that's not right. We're all hungry. Why didn't you share the meat with us?" Truly selfish and greedy, probably wanting to profit off us during this disaster. As they clamored, I was frantic, hurriedly explaining, "I didn't say I wouldn't share with you. There are 10 of us here, and even if we cooked this whole piece of meat, how much could each person get? Wouldn't it be better to save it until help arrives?" My shop usually did well, and I sold out my food supplies daily. This meat was reserved for emergencies and wasn't to be used unless absolutely necessary. But their eyes were already red, none willing to listen to my explanations, especially my apprentice, who looked at me as if I were an enemy. Enough, master. This is the last time I call you master. If you have any conscience left, just leave by yourself. Why should a woman like you eat when men will do the work when it's time to rebuild after the disaster? Those words hit me like a hammer to the heart. Years ago, when Ezra was 14 and kicked out of his home, I took pity on him and took him in as my apprentice, providing him with food, shelter, and skills. Never did I imagine that the apprentice I treated like my own would say such beastly things. Why should I leave? This is my shop, and you're eating my food. If anyone should leave, it's you. I sat down on the ground with a resigned attitude, as if ready to face death, but Ezra's expression darkened, and he picked me up and started walking outside. Master, since you're not showing respect, don't blame me for being rude. Little beast, what are you doing? This is my shop. What right do you have to throw me out? I screamed in fright and struggled, but for a moment, Ezra didn't know what to do with me. Just then, the people sitting nearby stood up, lifted me by my limbs, and threw me outside. Isla, you can't blame us. If you had just shared that piece of meat earlier, would we have done this? Don't waste words with this greedy owner. By driving her out, there's more meat for the rest of us. She's been making money off us for 10 years. Consider this payback. Quick, close the door. It's cold. These refugees were all local neighbors. I had run this fast food place for 10 years, offering the most affordable meals and the largest portions. I never minded giving credit or free meals because I believed in helping during tough times. Better a nearby neighbor than a distant relative. We all supported each other through the hardest days. Among them was a homeless man who had eaten for free at my place for 3 years. Yet, when I was thrown out, he said nothing and even helped others to open the door. I was dumped into the cold, heavy snow, unable to get up for a long time. The sound of the door shutting heavily chilled my heart as well. I had run my business honestly for 10 years, never seeking anything in return, raising my apprentice as my own child. How did I end up in such a plight? I was still immersed in pain when suddenly I felt something warm in my hand. Looking down, I saw a steaming box of food that had appeared out of nowhere. Wasn't this the same box that was taken from me? How did it appear out of thin air? And why was it as hot as if it had just been made? A bold idea struck me, and I devoured the meal quickly. Then threw the empty box aside and anxiously waited. The next second, another box of food appeared out of nowhere. I was so happy I almost jumped for joy, but to confirm my suspicion, I reluctantly dumped the entire meal. Sure enough, another box appeared before me. Whether it was a divine gift or something else, I wasn't going to starve in this snowy wilderness. The immediate priority was to find a warm place. Fortunately, the heavy snow had stopped, and the snow nearly buried me halfway. To avoid sinking further, I had to crawl through the snow. The surrounding shops were either destroyed by the snow or firmly closed. After a long search, I finally found a 2-story leisure club with a small crack in the door. I squeezed in with great effort, but the next second, a sharp knife appeared in front of me, startling me. Ah! Both the person with the knife and I yelled at the same time. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was a young man. Looking inside, I saw 7 or 8 young students taking refuge here. Seeing that I was an unthreatening-looking auntie, the young man put down the knife and apologized with a slight embarrassment. Sorry, auntie, we were afraid of bad people coming to take our place. We were robbed yesterday, and had to brave the snow to find refuge here. I waved my hand to indicate there was no need to apologize. I saw the boy staring intently at the lunchbox in my hands, swallowing his saliva. Looking around the room, I noticed several students all appearing similarly famished. Although they seemed in good spirits, they were clearly hungry, their faces gaunt and pale, suggesting they hadn't eaten in a long time. Do you want some? I asked, lifting the lunchbox. The young man's swallowing was audible, yet he shook his head and said, "No, auntie, that's yours, you should eat it." The other students nodded in agreement as well, reflecting on the unpleasant expressions of some neighbors I had encountered earlier. And then observing these clear-eyed students, the disparity between people struck me profoundly. I had once had a child too, who tragically passed away young. Had he grown up, he would have been about their age now. A wave of compassion stirred in me, but recent events had heightened my caution. Thus, I threw the lunchbox outside the door. "Auntie, what are you doing?" Even if you don't want to eat, don't waste food like that, they protested, nearly breathless with distress. But when they saw another lunchbox suddenly appear in my hand, they were stunned. Holy smokes, Auntie, have you developed some kind of supernatural power? It's like you're the leading lady in a doomsday novel, exclaimed one of the girls excitedly. As you can see, I have an endless supply of these lunchboxes. I'm happy to share. But you can't just eat and drink for free, you'll need to work. Let's all put in some effort to get through this snowy weather together, I explained. As the students nodded in agreement, I distributed the lunchboxes. Starving, they began to devour the food voraciously. I used this opportunity to search the clubhouse and, sure enough, found an old diesel generator and several electric heaters in the storeroom. The generator was an old model, probably unfamiliar to the younger generation. I enlisted a few of the young men to help bring it out and get it running. Once connected to the heaters, the room warmed up instantly. In that moment, I transformed from a mere auntie into a revered figure, surrounded by admiring fans praising me enthusiastically. I quickly charged my phone and started browsing the news. The heavy snowfall had affected the entire country. Thankfully, in the north, where I was, people were better equipped to handle the snow. However, the southern regions, unaccustomed to such severe weather, suffered greatly. The national emergency services were focusing on those areas. Fortunately, the government had mobilized rescue efforts swiftly. As long as they persisted, there was hope, and with my newfound, impressive power, I felt even more optimistic. Just then, I received a call from my apprentice, Ezra, staring at his name on the screen. All I could think about was his recent betrayal. I was tempted to hang up, but somehow, I ended up answering, Master. It's great you're alive. Have you found any food out there? Ezra's words infuriated me, as he seemed to have completely forgotten that he was the one who had driven me out, yet now had the audacity to ask me to bring back food to save them. Food, of course, I found some. That's great. Please bring it quickly. We finished the meat you left in no time. Why didn't you store more food? I'm starving here, he complained. Why should I care if you're starving? You were the one who kicked me out, I retorted sharply. But even if I did send you away, you can't just ignore me. Don't forget, when you took me in, you said you'd treat me like your own son. Isn't it expected for a mother to sacrifice for her son? What kind of son drives his mother away? Have some shame, I snapped, overwhelmed by his audacity, and hung up the phone abruptly. I remembered the surveillance in the store, although there was almost a blackout around. The surveillance system was equipped with batteries that could last at least a week. In the footage, after Ezra kicked me out, he jubilantly took out a large chunk of frozen meat and started cooking it in a pot. But just as the meat was cooked and ready to be served, a big and tall man cut half of it away. What are you doing? That's my meat. Ezra tried to snatch it back, but being small and skinny, he was easily slapped to the ground by the man. Whoever has the stronger fist owns the meat, the man declared. After that, the others rushed forward, grabbed the remaining meat, and devoured it greedily. These men, with their large appetites and having been hungry for days, devoured the large chunk of meat in no time. Ezra, unable to grab even a scrap, called me in a pitiful state. Seeing all this, I felt a perverse sense of satisfaction and sent Ezra a photo of the leftover meals from the students. Instantly, Ezra bombarded me with 7 or 8 calls, but I didn't answer any. Turned off my phone, and decided to ignore the situation. During a conversation with the students, I learned they all came from the same class for a team-building exercise. The leader of the group, Felix, was their class president. They were all athletes, strong both men and women, and under my direction, they cleared the snow from the front door to prevent it from being overwhelmed by more snowfall. Although the clubhouse had a generator, its diesel supply was running low and would soon burn out, so I sent Felix and a few others to gather some firewood from a nearby forest. Must be starving. Come and eat, I said, handing out steaming meals to them. They hadn't even started eating when I locked eyes with a familiar pair. It was Ezra. The clubhouse was directly opposite my restaurant, and he could clearly see the scene here and the meals in my hands through the window. His eyes reddened with emotion as he called out to those nearby, and soon, the same group that had kicked me out approached menacingly. So, you have food and you're giving it to strangers, not even to your disciple and neighbor. Are you even human? Ezra yelled at me. Enough, I responded sharply. I've never seen a good neighbor or a good disciple who drives someone away. From now on, I have nothing to do with you, Ezra tried to retort, but the big man slapped him down again. Isla, you ungrateful disciple, I've taught him a lesson for you. If you want, I can chop off his dog's head to apologize to you. Hearing this, Ezra trembled in fear, his lower body seemingly dampening the snow beneath him. No need. If it weren't for your support, I wouldn't have been driven out. Now you're trying to clear yourselves. Want a meal box? It's $500 each. Take it or leave it, Isla. This is really unnecessary. We just drove you out. Do you have to push us to our deaths? Who's trying to push whom to death? When you drove me out, did you ever consider if I might freeze to death in the snow? Just get lost. I was furious. It's a classic case of ingratitude, being too kind only to breed resentment. The man's face grew very ugly, and then, noticing the women behind me, he said disdainfully, Isla, since you have food, why not feed us men who can do the heavy lifting? Feeding these girls is just a waste. They can't carry heavy loads. To put it bluntly, they're just a liability. This comment infuriated yet amused me. My female students were all capable, handling everything from snow clearing to gathering firewood. Interestingly, it's the few big men in the store who, aside from being capable of stealing from others, are good for nothing else. You think it won't be a waste if I give it to you? If you were of any use, you'd have gone out to find food by now, I retorted unapologetically, which visibly soured the man's expression. Since that's how it is, don't blame us for being rude, brothers, let's take it from him. After he spoke, several of them charged at me, intending to snatch the boxed meal from my hands. What they didn't know was that my companions were all strong, athletic students. Before they could even fully emerge from the snow, Felix hurled a wooden stick that fiercely struck one of the men on the forehead. Immediately after, the students in the house charged out. The group that had driven me out was led by a big and tall man, but the rest were old, weak, or disabled. It didn't take long before they were beaten into a retreat, shuffling back to the small restaurant covered in dust and dirt. We celebrated triumphantly, grabbing several bottles of beer from the clubhouse and toasting each other. Then laid out a table full of boxed meals and feasted before their very eyes. Through the window, I could see their angry glares, especially Ezra, whom I had previously taken pity on, always cooking specially for him. Now, unable to snatch any food and probably starved all day, his cheeks were gaunt, making him look like a vengeful ghost. The next second, Ezra was severely beaten by people inside the restaurant, and I could faintly hear some cursing. It's all your fault. If you hadn't driven your master away, would we be starving here? You better beg your master, whether by kneeling or even suicide. If you can't get the food back, just you wait, he screamed as he was beaten, but I felt not a ripple inside. All of this was his own doing. Just then, snowflakes began to fall from the sky, and the fierce wind howled again. Is another blizzard coming? I quickly called the students inside and barricaded the door firmly. We lit the gathered firewood, and everyone huddled around the fire for warmth. Though not hungry, I still made everyone eat an extra serving of the boxed meal. In such cold weather, it's essential to have more fat to avoid freezing to death. Outside, the wind roared, but amidst it, I heard a distinct cry for help. Help, save me. I opened the curtain to look, and to my surprise, it was a homeless man who had sought refuge in my store. At that moment, he was completely naked, his body covered in frost. Isla, please save me. They kicked me out and even took my clothes. I'm going to freeze to death. A girl, unable to bear it, tried to open the door, but I stopped her. The first time I met this homeless man, he was nearly as naked and about to freeze to death in the heavy snow. Feeling pity, I had brought him into the restaurant to warm up, and since then, he had eaten free meals at my place for 3 years. I had treated him so kindly. To call me his lifesaver was no exaggeration, yet, when I was driven out, possibly to freeze to death in the snow, he did nothing and even helped others against me. Such a person was not worth saving. I ignored his cries, letting him shout and scream outside. Isla, you heartless wench, you're just going to watch me freeze to death. I tell you, even as a ghost, I won't let you go. Seeing that I was not opening the door, the homeless man erupted in curses, seemingly venting his true feelings, but soon, he fell silent, merging with the ice and snow. The girl who had wanted to open the door felt somewhat guilty, but after I shared my experiences with her, she began to feel indignant on my behalf. Auntie, you did the right thing. He doesn't deserve your help. I gave her a smile and once again checked the restaurant's surveillance through my phone. The meat in the store had been completely devoured, leaving only some vegetarian dishes like potatoes and carrots. Such a small amount was far from enough for the 9 burly men in the store, thus, they had no choice but to cut down on the number of people eating. A homeless man, who had neither support nor valuables, naturally became the first target to be abandoned. He was brutally stripped of his clothes and thrown out to fend for himself, but even after discarding one, there were still 8 left. Evidently, Ezra was the next one they set their sights on. He was lying on the ground asleep when suddenly several men grabbed him tightly and began stripping him of his clothes. "What are you doing? Don't throw me out. This restaurant belongs to my master, you can't kick me out," he pleaded. He struggled and wailed like a dog that had lost its home. I wonder if he thought that one day the same could happen to him when he heartlessly threw me out. "Your master was driven out by you. What makes you any different? Useless trash. Wasting food here. Just throw him out," they shouted, as a few men were about to throw Ezra out. He let out a scream like a slaughtered pig, and even wet his pants in fear. At that moment, he seemed to think of something and hurriedly said, "Spare my life, and I can find food for us." Hearing this, the men put Ezra down. I was also curious about how Ezra would find food, but the next moment, I couldn't tell if the monitor had frozen as no sound was recorded. I could only watch Ezra panicking. My instincts told me he wasn't offering anything good. The blizzard lasted all night, and there were several moments when I thought the storm would break through our shelter and bury us in the snow. That night, none of us felt like sleeping. We sat silently around the fire. After a while, a girl began to sob softly. "I just wanted to see the snow. We're not going to die here, are we?" Her words turned everyone else's faces grim. The room felt lifeless for a while. "Don't worry, I'm here, and I won't let you starve," I reassured them, pulling out some boxed meals. Seeing the steaming, fragrant meals, everyone's mood lifted a little. "Yeah, we have our great heroine Isla. Usually, in stories, if you stick with the heroine, you survive," someone joked. "Exactly, let's all perk up a bit and eat some food to stop our doomsaying." "Yes, we can definitely make it." Watching them encourage each other, I felt uneasy. What if my ability to endlessly supply boxed meals disappeared the next day? How would I then manage to help these youngsters survive the harsh winter? Just then, a message popped up on my phone. "Please do not give up. The nation will not abandon any citizen. Volunteer rescue teams are working tirelessly." It was the latest update from the National Rescue Teams, indicating that many safe zones had been established, which lifted my spirits. Yes, we can definitely make it. Believe in ourselves and in our country. Finally, the blizzard subsided the next day. The snow outside had piled up quite a bit, and just clearing it was a huge effort. As I was busy shoveling snow, I saw a figure crawling through the snow towards us. It was Ezra. He was emaciated, his eyes sunken, and his body bore the marks of beatings. "Ha, master," he greeted me with a sycophantic smile. "You still dare to come, looking for a beating?" Before he could explain his reasons, Felix grabbed a stick, ready to hit him, scaring Ezra into curling up into a ball. "Wait for me, I'm here to help. I know where there's coal, which could keep us warm." Hearing this, I asked Felix to stop and look down at Ezra from above. "Are you serious?" "Of course, master. Have you forgotten that my dad sells coal? His factory is just less than 2 miles away," Ezra hurriedly replied. His words were indeed true. When he was kicked out of his home years ago, I had specifically visited his family and saw that they were in the coal business. Although we had gathered quite a bit of firewood, it definitely doesn't burn as intensely as coal. With this heavy snow, we have no idea how long it will last or when rescue might arrive. We have to be fully prepared. But, having seen Ezra's behavior on surveillance yesterday, I was worried he might pull some tricks, so we had to be cautious. "Auntie, we really do need the coal. If each of us carries a bag back, it should last at least half a month. Let's split up. Half of us will go with him to get the coal, and the other half will stay here to guard the place, just in case they try any tricks," Felix suggested. After thinking it over, I nodded. I conjured up dozens of boxed meals and placed them in the clubhouse as an emergency provision, making Ezra salivate. "Master, could I have one too? I haven't eaten in almost 2 days and have been filling my stomach with snow. If you don't give me one, I won't take you to get the coal." I had anticipated Ezra might pull something like this, so I wasn't worried. "If you don't take us to get the coal, then you won't get a meal." Instantly, he was at a loss for words, his face red and neck swelling with anger. Clearly, however, he needed that boxed meal more desperately than we needed the coal. Eventually, He gave in, dejectedly leading us to his family's coal factory. The snow was still thick, but fortunately, I had a few strong young men who shoveled the snow as we walked, preventing me from being overwhelmed by it. The coal factory was only a 10-minute walk away, but it took us nearly an hour to get there. Here we are, you'll need to dig around, the coal is probably buried under the snow, and there might be some left inside the warehouse, Ezra called out as he led me to the factory's warehouse, opening the door. We indeed found some coal left inside, all in small pieces but dry. Burning without causing irritation, I started to fill my backpack, but just as I was getting into it, the warehouse door suddenly slammed shut. Before I could react, I was forcefully pushed to the ground. "Ah, what are you doing?" I heard Ezra angrily shouting. You witch, I'm your disciple, and you wouldn't even spare me a boxed meal. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Do you want to starve me to death?" Ezra fiercely grabbed my neck, choking me. I struggled to push him away, using my arms and legs, but I underestimated the strength that can come from extreme anger. Despite not having eaten for 2 days, his grip was unmovable. "Ah, calm down, I can give you a boxed meal, but if you kill me, you won't have anything to eat." I tried to conjure up a boxed meal, but for some reason, I couldn't manage to produce one. Blinded by rage, Ezra ignored everything. What good is a meal, with this heavy snow? How long can I last? I might as well end it all for both of us. No. Murder is illegal, you're only 20 years old. Do you really want to spend your life in prison? I was almost out of breath as I struggled to utter my last words. Humph, breaking the law, the world is ending anyway. What does it matter if I kill more people? Ezra seemed to have lost his reason to hunger and hatred, extinguishing even the last trace of his humanity. I was suffocating, lacking oxygen, and a tear slowly fell. If I could live this life over, I wouldn't have welcomed Ezra, who was wandering aimlessly on the snowy streets with bare feet, into my shop that snowy day. I wouldn't have fed him, taught him how to cook, or cared for him like a mother does, meticulously looking after every detail. Would I have avoided this fate if I had been a bit more indifferent? I resigned myself to my fate, feeling sorry for the students. Without my boxed lunches, how long could they survive in this snowy weather? As my consciousness began to drift away from my brain, in the last moments of my life, I heard a muffled boom. The next second, the hands on me were released, and fresh air filled my lungs once again. I coughed violently, and before I could even celebrate surviving the ordeal, a group of people burst in. Could it be a rescue team? At the same time, Felix and a few students rushed over to help me up. His face was full of self-reproach as he painfully said, "Aunt, are you all right? You suddenly disappeared. It scared me to death." But thankfully the rescue team came to save us. We're finally safe. Seeing the friendly faces of the rescue team members, I couldn't help but let my tears fall. I thought I was going to die here. This lady, we are a spontaneously formed rescue team. We were passing by and happened to hear someone calling for help. It's shocking that someone would dare to commit violence at this time, thinking they wouldn't face the law. After speaking, the rescue team members firmly restrained Ezra. He finally realized what was happening, trembling as if wound up. "No, please, I didn't mean it. I was just confused for a moment. Master, you always cared for me the most. Please plead with them. Spare me this once. I will take good care of you in the future. Please don't let them arrest me." He tried desperately to grab my hand, crying bitterly, but he was held tight by the rescue team and couldn't move. I watched him coldly, the searing pain on my neck a constant reminder that my beloved apprentice had almost killed me. "The thing I regret most now is taking you as my apprentice. Reflect well while you're inside, and be a better person when you get out. Our master-disciple relationship ends here." "No, you can't be so heartless. I just drove you out. I didn't actually kill you. My crime isn't worthy of death. Why can't you forgive me?" I turned my head away, ignoring his heart-wrenching screams behind me. Soon, he was taken away, and my world finally quieted down. The rescue team quickly cleared the snow from the streets, creating a walkable path and establishing a temporary safety zone for people to warm up. My ability to provide an unlimited supply of boxed lunches disappeared the moment Ezra choked me. But I didn't need it anymore. In the safety zone, I took on the responsibility of a chef, ensuring every refugee could have a warm meal. The terrible blizzard finally stopped. With everyone's efforts, much of the thick snow melted, and the city began to revive. As for those who sought refuge in my shop, I didn't let them go either. I provided the police with the shop surveillance footage, They recklessly endangered lives by pushing people out into the blizzard, committing a crime, and are now detained waiting for legal punishment. After returning to normal life, I started running my diner again. Felix, after graduating, didn't pursue his field but instead came to work as an apprentice in my diner. He was diligent and gentle. Watching him, I saw the son I had lost before he could fully experience the world. Though I've encountered human indifference, I still believe in the goodness of people. I continued to sell affordable fast food and provide free boxed lunches to those who couldn't afford a meal. I treated others with kindness, and they returned it, helping my business grow. I opened several more diners around the city. A sign always hung at the entrance of my shop: if you feel cold or hungry, please come in and stay a while.